The mistake by the river is the most abnormal existence in suspense movies. The elderly, who are nearly half a century old, kneel on the ground, hand over the whip in their hand, pleading for the long-awaited whip from the leaves. However, the artistic young man in the hair salon is a true fetish for women's clothing. Criminal investigation Captain Ma Zhe is just and brave, but he drives himself crazy because of investigating cases. The story began in 1995. In the case of 14 mother-in-law murders, the perpetrator struck the dying mother-in-law to death by the river with a knife. A child discovered his body in the evening, and no other suspicious individuals were found at the time. The boy mischievously asked Ma Zhe before leaving, if you
坏人，能不能给我看一下他长怎么样啊？特别想知道他的样子。
放心，叔叔一定找到。
catch the bad guys. Please remember this sentence. It also corresponds to the ending of the little boy later on. At the scene, only one woman's backpack was found, which contained a magnetic tape and some cosmetics, and there were no other useful clues. After investigation, it was found that the dying mother-in-law was lonely and had no grudges or grievances with anyone. The only suspect was a lunatic he had taken in a few years ago. But from the neighbor's mouth, it was learned that the madman is usually very gentle and has no violent tendencies. Even when the children throw stones or play with the madman has no reaction. The madman's whereabouts are unpredictable, and it takes some time to find them. At this point, the case entered a dead end, and they had to start with the murder weapon and the only evidence of Ms. Wu's backpack at the scene. After various attempts at cutting tools, I intentionally resembled a regular machete to a wound, and the cosmetics in the bag were all very ordinary, making it difficult to determine identity. Ma Zhe pinned his hopes on the magnetic tape, but there were only songs by Zhou Huajian inside. His heart is hidden in. Although there is still no clue, the good news is that the police have found the madman. Ma Zhe quickly went to the river to meet the madman. It can be imagined that obtaining useful clues from a molecule is even more difficult than reaching the sky. Ma Zhe, who had a nose full of dust, returned to the police force. His disciple accidentally flipped the tape over to his nose and found a recording of a woman inside.
你来了，无论你什么时候来，我都会在这第一首歌里等你。我好喜欢这个小窗里啊！今天我偷偷去你单位了。
Then they delineated the residential areas on both sides of the iron cabinet based on the sound of trains in the recording, with a population of up to 50,000, which was like looking for a needle in a haystack. So Ma Zhe copied a cassette tape and listened repeatedly when he had nothing to do, hoping to uncover some clues. Sure enough, they found that the train's whistle sounds were different in several recordings, so they found the train driver and confirmed that the only different whistle sound represented a train malfunction. And in the past 6 months, this has happened in the whole province. In the end, the driver took them to the location of the malfunction and indeed found the owner of the backpack, Qianling, in the residential area of a nearby factory through the recorded sound. During the interrogation, Qianling claimed that he only went for a walk by the river. Seeing the body and not reporting it to the police was because he was afraid, but his home was an hour's drive from the crime scene, so all his actions were very suspicious. But when Ma Zhe asked about the identities of Lu Ying and Li Hong, Qianlin remained silent and Ma Zhe had to end the interrogation first. Just when they were at a loss, Wang Hong, a university teacher from Qianling, suddenly arrived at the police station. The Hong mentioned by Qianling in the recorder is Wang Hong. Originally, on that day, Wang Hong invited Qianling to meet by the river. However, he was late and did not see Qianling, so he himself returned to school. The next day, Qianling told Wang Hong about seeing the body and said that he was very afraid to enter the wilderness and lose his backpack. During the time of the incident, Wang Hong was playing cards at work, but she provided another clue. When he was preparing to return from the river, he saw a tall woman with big wavy hair wearing clothes from a textile factory. When Wang Honglin left, he begged the police not to tell his family about him and the front row, because Wang Hongyi had a family, which was the light of walking. This is also the reason why Qianling has been unwilling to speak up. After investigation, it was confirmed that the time of Wang Hong's incident was actually playing cards, so they transferred the suspicion to the Bo of the textile factory and came to the factory to investigate. It was found from the entry and exit records of the security guard that around 7 p.m. on the night of the incident, only the barber Shuel Yang from the factory had left. Although the death time of the 14th mother-in-law is around 3 to 6 p.m. in the afternoon, no point can be missed. They came to the barber shop to investigate and asked a female worker from a nearby textile factory who had ridden a big wave here. Unexpectedly, Shuoliang had been waiting here long ago for self-destruction.
我知道你们要问什么。那天我去河边了，刚到河边我就看见那个尸体了。反正当时我就知道这事肯定跟我脱不了干系。什么叫脱不了干系？这案子是你干的？不是我干，但这不重要嘛。反正你们也不会放过我。
My. This sentence fooled Maja and made him feel sick. However, Su Liang was very certain that Maja and his team should stop going through the process and convict him directly. Helpless, Maja had to return to the police station to investigate Su Liang's background. Originally, Su Liang had a criminal record and was once betrayed for the crime of hooliganism for 8 years in prison. However, due to someone sitting at the end of the investigation, he was released in the 7th year. At the same time, Su Liang did not have any time to commit the crime, so the suspicion can be basically ruled out. The only clue now is the big wave mentioned by Wang Hong. Maja, troubled by tranquility, and the director playing table tennis to alleviate the situation. During the current conversation, Maja mentioned that he had achieved third-class merit in Yunnan, but the director stated that there is no record of third-class merit in his files. Maja insisted that he had received it before, so the director asked him to find the certificate and hang it on the honor wall in the bureau. When he returned home, Maja searched the sky but couldn't find it, and his wife hadn't seen it either. So he called his colleague who used to work together in Yunnan to verify, remember.
记得当年在云南，我立三等功的事儿。
什么三等功啊？我没立过三等功啊。
我不是说你，我说我。
不记得，你天天在喝酒，哪里立过三等功？
Maja, who was troubled, received a message that the internet celebrity had died and was about to die. The same death method was used by the river where his mother-in-law was killed, and he also left a suicide letter behind.
我曾经许诺过你，只有死亡能把我们分开，可惜我食言了。也许早一点遇到你，一切都会不一样。
So Maja came to the Qianling family to seek evidence. It was supposed to be a date tonight, but his parents found out and locked him up at home. Maja told him the news of the death of an internet celebrity, but Qianling refused to accept it and was deeply saddened. Now the big wave in Wang Hong's mouth has become the final clue for Maja to investigate the case of his dying mother-in-law. But just as they were discussing the case, the disciple discovered a crazy person covered in blood outside the door. They got up to chase and found a crazy man with blood on his face holding a machete, dying from then on. The case between mother-in-law and Wang Hong has come to an end, and the criminals have been locked up in a mental hospital. But Maja seemed unhappy, and he was also unhappy when celebrating the group photo. He found the director and revealed himself.
一点，为什么死的是王红啊？疯子怎么突然就把他给杀了？如果王红说的话是真的话，那他说的这个大波浪，我们怎么到现在都没整上呢？还有，案发当晚，疯子拿着凶器，直接就出现在我面前了，哪儿那么寸？
The director reminded Maja to follow the chain of evidence and seek truth from facts. Fingerprints, knife edges, bloody weapons, and splattered blood all prove that the madman is the culprit. Maja was advised not to dwell on unresolved cases, but Maja didn't give up and came to the textile factory again to investigate the female workers with big waves. Maja, who had not made any progress, came to Su Liang's house to investigate the big waves, but Su Liang insisted that he had not seen the big waves when he was by the river. Instead, he begged and scolded them in a pleading tone, asking what was going on. After completing the process, at least he gave himself hope. Unexpectedly, Shuoliang was sent to the emergency room the next day. The doctor stated that although the behavior was successful, it could be toxic and enter the bloodstream. It is necessary to take the patient to the hospital for dialysis in order to save their life. Maja was very anxious, but the doctor told him not to worry. The family did not sign, and no one dared to take responsibility for it. So, Maja snatched the order and signed it directly. If he didn't send it away, he might have died. Considering that Su Liang may have committed suicide for fear of crime, Maja plans to go to Su Liang's house to search in detail. He really finds many treasures, including perfume, lipstick and jewelry, which are all for women. Maja found another box under the bed, which contained a red dress, a pair of black high heels, and most importantly, a wig with a large wave shape. Originally, Shuai Yang's guilt was his own women's clothing. At this point, Maja completely gave up his mind. He told his disciples, "Let's just do this, no further investigation." Finally, you have time to accompany your pregnant wife to the hospital for examination, which dealt them a fatal blow.
孩子之后可能会有智力发育的问题。
那我们两家都没有这种病史，我们孩子怎么会有这种病呢？
我不是说了吗？这是基因突变，也不是说一定会得，但是10%的几率已经挺高的了。
Wife finds it difficult to accept. Pay attention to Maja's attitude at this moment. He did not immediately comfort his wife, even returned home expressionless and advised her to have her child killed. However, as a mother, how could she easily give up her own flesh and blood? The two also began to argue, but soon a homicide occurred. The madman escaped from his mental illness and was killed. At the beginning, the little boy who discovered the body of the demon's deceased mother-in-law had a shocking sighting this time.
当时那孩子走前面，他走后边，拿起石头直接就拍那孩子脸上了。
那么远你能看清楚吗？
能，我眼镜新配的。
Maja went to Grandma 14th's residence to search for the traces of the molecules. He lay on the Kong pondering for a while, only to see many slender marks on the roof and the same marks on the windowsill. So he discovered the whip hanging on his clothes and simulated the scene of the whip according to the location of the marks. It is very likely that Grandma 14 had been abused by the molecules for a long time until she was finally killed. Returning to the bureau, Maja was lost in thought as he looked at the government photos, but his disciple said something interesting.
我之前看过一电影，那凶手也杀了好多人。一开始看死者也没什么联系，但是后来发现他们的父亲都参加过同一场侵略战争。
The madman fled and committed another crime, which angered his superiors. They were ordered to catch the madman within a week. Sadly, Maja returned home and started arguing again about his child's issue. Angry, he dismantled his wife's puzzle and threw it into the toilet. The next day, Su Liang, who was discharged from the hospital, came to express his gratitude to Maja for saving his life and helping him clear the charge of murder. He also sent a banner with 5 big characters written on it, saving lives and helping the injured, and saving a new life. Unexpectedly, shortly after Maja left the police station, Su Liang landed heavily on the police car. This incident dealt a heavy blow to Shi Maja. His eyes were dull, his mind was lost, and he gradually walked into a dream. In his dream, Xiaonan also saw a murderer.
原来是你啊！然后我早就见过你了。
Next, Grandma 14 is deep in the grass by the river. Grandma 14 is kneeling on the ground and passing a whip.
这才对了，可惜只能死。
Wang Hong, a long-necked imperial messenger, lay on the ground and let him listen to everything.
这次你是我在牢笼里打开的天窗，也是我心甘情愿的枷锁，你是我漂泊的岛屿。
The projector turned off and on again, and the director was shaking a paddle ball made of a ping-pong ball. "3 minutes. As the screen turned, the projector was blazing by the river. Maja ran hard to put out the fire, while the people who died quietly next to him were mocking Maja. He held the projector and plunged into the water. Maja woke up from his dream, feeling mentally tormented and unable to extricate himself. Therefore, he resigned under the pretext of his wife giving birth to a child. But the director still highly values Maja, patiently persuading him and asking him to catch the madman and close the case as soon as possible. Although he was unable to resign, Maja entrusted the task of capturing the madman to his disciple, allowing him to fully represent him in handling the case, while he devoted himself wholeheartedly to his family. The two no longer argued, and Maja cooked a good table for his wife. The atmosphere arrived, and Maja hugged and danced with his wife while humming Flower Hearts. However, he was mesmerized by the puzzle on the wall. The two went to the photo studio to take a group photo. When a customer was picking up a photo, Maja accidentally noticed the sound of a madman in the photo box, which made him fall into madness again. He borrowed wine to relieve his worries, but found that the madman behind him was watching him recklessly and laughing loudly. Mahjong didn't get up to catch the madman, but hurriedly walked out of the restaurant. After coming out, he once again encountered the haunting figure of the madman, which made Maja feel a bit panicked. After a long time, Maja finally realized it. He took out his pistol and loaded it, while the madman calmly walked into the alley. Maja chased into the temple, and the figure of the madman passed by. Maja fired 2 shots in a row, and then he fired 2 more shots. Afterwards, he approached the director and claimed to have killed the madman, but the director said that there was someone guarding the temple that night, and if a shooting occurred, they would not be unaware. Maja believes that there may have been some things he didn't remember about drinking last night, but he is definitely the one who did this, the sand madman. Last night, You can find it.
马哲，我问你，64手枪几发子弹？7发。你把你配枪拿出来，马哲。你把枪放这儿。你现在马上回去休息，马上。
In the camera, Maja dismantled 3 bullets. The sound of heaven knew that none of the 7 bullets had fired. Maja, who was in a state of collapse, walked into the river only to find the madman by the river. He fell silent and wanted to wake up and be clear-headed. The madman is still by the river, wearing Maja's clothes, and the horse walks step by step onto the shore in a daze. The 2 of them looked at each other, and the madman showed a disdainful expression. He picked up a stone and threw it at the madman on horseback. Afterwards, Maja Ying solved the case and won the 3rd-class honor for bravely fighting the criminals. Although Yunan's 3rd-class merit has not been proven, now Maja finally has a true 3rd-class merit. 1 year later, Maja's child was born. In the bathtub, the child placed toys on their clothes, but when they turned their heads, they felt like they had met before. At this point, the story has come to an end, and many people are in a state of confusion as to what exactly the story is being told. Next, let's delve into the 4 shots fired by Maja in the temple, representing the deaths of 4 people. My mother-in-law is always Wang Hong and the barber Su Liang. The eyewitness, the little boy, seems to have no contact with a few people, but in fact, they have a mysterious connection in the dark. As Maja's apprentice said before, he watched a movie in which the victims had no connection, but in the end, it was found that the victims had all participated in the same aggressive war. Starting from the 14th mother-in-law's death, the destinies of these individuals all came to an end due to Maja. Firstly, the death of Grandma 14 revealed Wang Hong's secret. Qianling was a student of Wang Hong. When they fell in love, they wouldn't have been so afraid of seeing the light. The most fatal thing was that Wang Hong had a driver, and Wang Hong's secret was exposed, which led to his death. So is Wang Hong's death a suicide or a homicide? Although Maja was already mentally confused at the time, he told us the truth in his dream, and it was obvious that the madman had killed him. One is Wang Hong smoking by the river, waiting for Qian Lin to give him another farewell letter. There is a saying in my heart that goes like this: I once swore that only life and death can separate us. But now I have made a mistake, implying that their secret has been exposed and the relationship has come to an end. This is not a medical book, but a farewell. So he waited by the river just to break up with Qian Lin. There was a scene of deep footsteps, Blind Red turning his head to the right, and the birds in the forest seemed to be frightened and flew into the sky. This is actually where the madman killed the internet celebrity and alarmed the birds. What is the motive behind a madman's murder? In my personal opinion, it's possible that the madman and mother-in-law often play by the river. Wang Hong's appearance was mistakenly believed by the elements to want to invade their territory. He had no concept of death and raised a machete to kill and bite his mother-in-law, driving Wang Hong away. Following Wang Hong's death, Su Liang's secret was revealed. After Wang Hong's death, although Maja caught the madman and temporarily closed the case, he left behind a big wave of information, which directly pointed to the secret of the shiny women's fur haircuts behind. The character Xueliang is very interesting. He always speaks with a strange tone in his words. 8 years ago, Su Liang was imprisoned under the pretext of hooliganism for someone sitting falsely. Su Liang has been strictly guarding his secrets, otherwise he would definitely be able to overturn the case and be released from prison. But Maja's persistence in the big waves also led to Su Liang's suicide, because in that era, women's clothing leather was discovered by people, which was equivalent to the death penalty, and ultimately led to Su Liang's 2 suicides. For the last time, after sending in a strange and sinister aura, Xueliang jumped onto the road in front of Maja and fell onto the car roof, wearing a large wavy wig on his head. Previously, he finally became himself again. It was also Su Liang's death that made Maja realize that the more he traced the truth, the more he exposed the secrets of others, and the more people died for it. Then Su Liang's death brought out Maja's secret. Su Liang's death deeply hit Maja, and Maja's mental state began to collapse. At this time, his wife was pregnant, and it was found that the child had a 10% chance of intellectual disability, which is a secret belonging to Maja. Previously in the hospital, Maja's attitude was clearly not right. Without comforting his wife, he walked out of the consultation room in a wooden manner. To a large extent, Maja had mental problems when he was in Yunnan. Do you remember he firmly believed in his third-class merit in Yunnan? People around him have proven that he has never received any merit, and through conversations with colleagues in Yunnan, they also learned that he often drinks and has never received a third-class merit. Maja's secret had not yet been discovered and a new murder case emerged. The criminals escaped from the mental hospital and stoned the little boy to death. Why did the little boy die after Maja's secret was revealed? This is about the relationship between Maja and the little boy. What if the scene of the 14th mother-in-law's crime was not the first time the little boy and Maja had met? At the beginning of the movie, a little boy wearing a police cap, holding a toy gun, and playing police and bandit games with a group of friends on a dilapidated building. When he rushed left and right to open the last door, he saw a broken arm wall and looked at Maja from the street across the air, which was his first contact. Afterwards, by the river, the little boy, as the earliest eyewitness to appear, once again told Maja that I really wanted to see what the killer looked like. This sentence later became the spiritual pillar for Maja to explore the truth. So the image of the little boy can be seen as the idea of Maggie's kindness and justice, representing his extreme thirst for the truth. At that time, Maja was preparing to resign and gave up half of his secret, which was that his wife was pregnant. As a member, he ran out of the mental hospital and killed the little boy. You can see that the little boy actually died for Maja, he was Maja's substitute. So what is the motive behind the madman killing the little boy? And the little boy was stoned to death, corresponding to the initial investigation of 14 mother-in-law neighbors describing the situation of the madman. He was gentle and had no temper, and even when the child threw a stone at him, he didn't hide. The madman is actually playing with the little boy in the same way, but he doesn't know the weight of the force. In the end, the death of the little boy revealed the secret of 14 mother-in-law. The madman kept Maja in the case of Du's crime, which required him to return to the front line. In the process of pursuing the molecules, we discovered the secret of our mother-in-law. The secret of her masochistic tendencies surfaced, and the revelation of this secret corresponded to the beginning. Her mother-in-law's death and masochistic tendencies were also clearly reflected in that 10-minute dream. When the madman rushed over with a machete, his mother-in-law said, "That's right. Unfortunately, he can only die once." This time, a closed loop is formed, and the person whose secret is revealed will die, and death will bring more secrets to be revealed. Molecules and Maja became the executors unconsciously, with clear division of labor. Maja is responsible for revealing secrets, while the members are responsible for picking up the execution machete. In the end, Maja stoned the madman to death and completed the identity exchange. A year later, the children playing in the bathtub placed toys on their clothes, much like the way molecules used to play by the river before. The child watching the camera is telling the audience that fate is an invisible cycle with no accurate answer.